In my disaster year, I will never forgive myself. Never, ever.
This is the story of a 5-time world champion who went from world number 1 to being whitewashed by a man ranked 111th in the world at the age of 58 at his own record equaling 33rd world championship. This is the epic downfall of Raymond van Barneveld. Before the fall, you need to understand just how high this man climbed. Born on the 20th of April 1967 in The Hague, Netherlands, Raymond van Barneveld spent his early working life delivering mail for the Dutch postal service. Naturally left-handed, but throwing darts with his right hand and winning his first tournament, the Rotterdam Open, at the age of just 17. His world championship debut came at the Lakeside in 1991, a 3-0 first round loss that sent him home disillusioned. And yet he returned, and by 1993 he had become the first Dutchman in history to win a match at the World Championship, dropping a 170 checkout on John Lowe before bowing out in the second round. Then came the titles. 1998, BDO World Champion, finishing on double 8 against Richie Burnett in a 6-5 final, the first non-British modern era champion, triggering what the Dutch press called Barney-mania. A postman from The Hague had conquered the world. 12 months later he defended that title against the same Burnett, winning 6-5 again, becoming only the second player in history, after Eric Bristow, to successfully defend the BDO crown. The titles kept arriving, world champion again in 2003, and again in 2005. 4 BDO titles from 6 finals, a national hero with a Dutch royal honour waiting for him at the end of it. None of that was enough. Van Barneveld wanted more. He wanted Phil Taylor. On the 15th of February 2006, Van Barneveld walked away from the BDO after 2 decades and 4 world titles, crossing over to the PDC because he wanted to compete against the best players on earth every single week. His very first PDC World Championship delivered exactly what he asked for. The 1st of January 2007, the Circus Tavern in Purfleet, the final, Van Barneveld against Phil Taylor. Taylor came out like a man who had already won, racing through the first 8 legs without reply and building a 3 sets to nil lead while averaging close to 110. By any rational reading of the match, it was finished. Van Barneveld put it plainly afterwards. I was thinking maybe I will lose 7-0, especially when I was 3-0 down. What followed was something entirely different. A 170 finish got Barneveld on the board in the 4th set, and from that moment the deficit began to close, set by set, leg by leg, 4-all, 5-all, 6-all, until a deciding set produced a sudden death leg that darts. Fans still talk about today. Van Barneveld won the bull-up, held the throw, hit his 21st maximum 180 of the match, and closed on double 20 in 13 darts. Over 1 million people watched on Sky Sports as Taylor's 21-match unbeaten World Championship run came to an end. Taylor himself called it the best final he had ever been part of. Van Barneveld became the only player in history to win world titles in both the BDO and the PDC, and by January 2008, the ranking system confirmed what everyone already knew: he was world number 1. That 2007 final was not some isolated miracle either, and the years that followed made that clear. UK Open titles arrived in 2006 and 2007, and the 2012 Grand Slam of Darts came his way after a 16-14 final win over a young Michael van Gerwen. The 2014 Premier League followed, beating Van Gerwen again 10-6 with a checkout percentage of 50.22%, the highest of any player across that entire tournament. The first 9-dart finish in Premier League history was his, thrown in 2006, and the first 9-darter ever recorded at a PDC World Championship was also his, against Jelle Klaassen in 2009. 3 consecutive World Championship semi-finals between 2015 and 2017 kept him in the conversation among the elite, and that 2017 semi-final against Van Gerwen produced something genuinely extraordinary: a 109.34 average from Van Barneveld in a losing effort. At that point, the highest losing average in World Championship history, with Van Gerwen averaging 114.05 and winning anyway. At 49 years old, posting a 109.34 average in a World Championship semi-final tells you everything about what Van Barneveld still was, even as the tide began to shift beneath him. The Dutch royal family had awarded him the Order of Orange Nassau back in 1999. 33 World Championships would eventually carry his name. For the best part of 2 decades, he sat among the 2 or 3 greatest players alive, which makes the question of when it all started going wrong all the more worth asking. Van Barneveld placed the beginning of his troubles around 2015 or 2016, telling reporters in March 2019 that he had been going through pain every single week for the previous 3 to 4 years, but the warning signs appeared even earlier than that. At the 2014 World Championship, leading Mark Webster 3-2 in sets with 2 sets left to win, he collapsed entirely, dropping the next 3 sets and exiting in the 3rd round. That same year at the World Grand Prix against Mervyn King, he missed 30 starting doubles in a single set and then began deliberately aiming at the bullseye, effectively abandoning the match in front of a live television audience with a public apology to the PDC and to viewers following shortly after. Off the oche, everything was becoming harder to manage. Type 2 diabetes had been diagnosed in 2009, affecting his vision and producing cold hands that chipped away at his stamina and consistency. And in 2022, he was still describing the search for ways to manage it. "I'm always searching for ways to find more stamina." Depression had pulled him into therapy in 2014. The relentless cycle of traveling and competing every week grinding him down in ways results alone couldn't explain. Then 2018 brought a robbery at his home in The Hague. 3 men at the door, his wife Sylvia startled and injured as she fled, 3 suspects eventually arrested. Weeks later, media photographed him with another woman after a Premier League event in Exeter, and a marriage of more than 25 years ended. The divorce finalised in January 2019. Career, health, marriage, home, everything unraveling simultaneously, and the darts board still waiting for him every week. The 2019 PDC World Championship should have been a celebration of longevity. Instead, Darius Labanauskas waited in the draw, a Lithuanian player making his PDC World Championship debut, ranked 108th in the world. Labanauskas averaged 102 in the opening set, while Van Barneveld managed 79, 9 doubles converted from 38 attempts, a checkout rate of 23.7%. 4 darts missed to force the 3rd set, and the deciding set lost 3-0. Van Barneveld's own description of the experience was stark. "I started panicking because I was losing to someone from Lithuania. 3 months later came something worse. The 2019 Premier League was Van Barneveld's 14th consecutive season in the competition, breaking Phil Taylor's own record of 13 straight appearances, but that number was the only record worth celebrating. 4 points from 9 matches put him at the bottom of the table, and his final night of Premier League darts arrived in Rotterdam, his home city, 10,000 orange-clad Dutch fans filling the arena to say farewell to their hero. He lost to Daryl Gurney, and then Michael van Gerwen beat him 7-1. Backstage, visibly destroyed, he made the announcement, "I've made a decision, I'm done now. I've been going through pain every week for the last 3 to 4 years. I don't want the pain anymore." He continued, "I'm a 5-time world champion, and I was thinking, do I deserve this? I don't think so, but this is reality." The very next day, he reversed everything, acknowledging he should not speak from raw emotion, and committed instead to one final farewell at Alexandra Palace. On the 13th of December 2019, that farewell arrived in the form of Darren Young, an American CDC circuit player, not a PDC regular. A first-round opponent for a 5-time world champion in what was supposed to be a dignified send-off. Van Barneveld lost 3-1, missed 4 darts to force a deciding set, and when it was over, he told reporters, "Losing the last 2 years in the first round, then you're an amateur. You don't belong in this game. I don't belong at this high level anymore." He added, "I'll hate myself every single day." Consecutive first-round exits to a Lithuanian debutant and an American non-PDC regular closed the chapter on a career that had once featured the greatest World Championship final ever played. 14 months after retiring, in September 2020, Van Barneveld announced he was coming back. The reason, by his own account, was simple. "I miss it. I miss it terribly." COVID had dismantled the exhibition circuit he had planned to build a post-retirement life around, and the absence of attention proved harder to accept than he had expected. "I went from 100% attention on TV and press to nothing, and I never liked that." Depression had followed, 3 or 4 months of it, unable to hold a dart, unable to see the board properly, his girlfriend pulling him through until a chance encounter with former coach Eva Kuitert somewhere in The Hague redirected everything. Kuitert told him the retirement had been the wrong decision, pointed him toward Q School, and that was enough. February 2021, and a 5-time world champion attended Q School for the first time in his career, grinding through qualifiers alongside players who had grown up watching him win titles. Day 3 brought a first-round loss to Switzerland's Stefan Belmont, a player ranked outside the world's best, but the remaining days delivered a 2-year PDC Tour card, Van Barneveld finishing 3rd on the European Q School Order of Merit. Just his 3rd event back on tour, he won Players' Championship 3 in Bolton on the 27th of February 2021, beating Joe Cullen 8-6 in the final, his first individual PDC ranking title since 2013. And suddenly, the comeback looked less like wishful thinking and more like genuine revival. November 2022 strengthened that case considerably. At the Grand Slam of Darts, Van Barneveld beat Gerwyn Price in the group stage, then beat him again in the quarter-final after trailing 8-3, eventually winning 16-13 before reaching the semi-final where eventual champion Michael Smith ended the run. The old player was still in there somewhere, flickering back to life when the moment demanded it. But for every Grand Slam semi-final, 3 first-round exits followed in silence, and that ratio tells the real story of the comeback years. The 2022 World Championship ended in a 3-1 loss to Rob Cross, and the 2023 edition produced a 4-0 whitewash at the hands of Gerwyn Price in the 3rd round. His best Worlds run since 2018 came at the 2024 edition, beating Radek Sagansky with a 99.81 average and then defeating Jim Williams 4-1 to reach the last 16, where 16-year-old Luke Littler was waiting. Born 20 days after Van Barneveld's famous 2007 triumph, a self-declared Barney fan, Littler averaged 105 and won 4-1 without breaking a sweat. A generational handover, and a particularly pointed one. March 2024 brought something genuinely beautiful. Players' Championship 5 in Germany. Stephen Bunting beaten 8-1 in the final, a route that included surviving match darts against Gary Anderson in a 7-6 decider and beating Michael Smith despite Smith hitting a 9-darter, his 30th PDC title. He had dropped his dart weight from 25 grams to 23 grams and told reporters, "Over the last week, I've been playing awesome, just like the old days." That was real. Nobody could take it away from him. None of that mattered on the floor event circuit, where 2025 delivered a 10-6 first-round world match play loss to Michael van Gerwen with an average of 87.10, followed by first-round exits at the World Grand Prix and European Championship. Permission was granted for Van Barneveld to play in a World Seniors event that June, an unusual arrangement for a player still holding an active PDC Tour card. By his own admission, "It has been a very poor year for me." Former player Vincent van der Voort, speaking on a podcast in 2025, put it without sentiment. He just doesn't belong there anymore. December 2025, the 2026 PDC World Championship. His record equaling 33rd appearance on the sport's biggest stage and 58 years old. His walk-on music cut out twice during the entrance. Eye of the Tiger, stopping and restarting and stopping again in front of the Ali Pali crowd. A detail almost too on the nose to include, but documented and real. Waiting at the Oki was Stefan Belmont of Switzerland, the same Stefan Belmont who had beaten him at Q School back in 2021, now carrying a world ranking of 111, 2 legs. That's how many Van Barneveld won in the entire match, against a player ranked 111 in the world, with Belmont winning 8 consecutive legs and Van Barneveld converting just 2 of 8 doubles, a checkout rate of 25%, the whitewash completed in 3 sets. Afterwards, speaking to Viaplay, the 5-time world champion offered this. "On the practice board, I'm a 5-time world champion, maybe even 10-time, but during the matches, it just is not going my way, and why? Not? I don't know." He continued, "I wonder what to do, because suffering every week from all the defeats is not what I want." Retirement was not announced. He planned to regroup. As of February 2026, the man who held the world #1 ranking in 2008 sits at approximately 35th or 36th in the world, outside the top 32, posting floor event averages in the range of 69 to 86. This is how a legend ends, not in a blaze of glory, not after a final title with a standing ovation, but slowly, match by match, average by average, first round exit after first round exit. 5 world championships. Titles in 2 separate organizations, a distinction nobody else in the history of the sport can claim. The first 9-darter in Premier League history and the first at a PDC World Championship. A 7-6 victory over Phil Taylor in the most celebrated match darts has ever produced, won on a sudden death leg with his 21st 180 of the match, world number 1 in 2008, and now, in 2026, averaging in the 70s on the floor, losing to players ranked 111th, telling cameras that he does not know why it keeps going wrong and choosing to come back anyway because walking away feels harder than losing. Wayne Mardle put it simply at the end of 2019. He's got to just think all good things come to an end. But Van Barneveld never quite accepted that, and maybe the same stubbornness that clawed him back from 3-0 down against Phil Taylor on the 1st of January 2007 is exactly the thing making this so difficult to watch. One of the greatest who ever stepped to an oche. And the distance between who he was and what the scoreboard says now is the most painful gap in professional darts.